And it is, oh, thank you, Mike. Mike, you're recording, correct?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You should all see a thing telling you that.
Yep, no, thank you. So this is a meeting of the Sixtown Regional Planning Board on November 15th, 2022, beginning around 6:36, calling the meeting to order. It is a remote meeting, and let's see, call the meeting to order 6:36 and roll call attendance. Mike?
Mike Naughton, present.
Present. And Jane?
Jane Detcher, present.
Thank you. And Karen?
Karen O'Neill, present.
And Deb Loomer? Deb?
Boomer's here.
And Pat?
Pat Shearer here.
Thank you. And Steve?
Steve Richter's here.
And Lynn?
Here.
So Len Reynolds is here. Bill?
Bill Thomas here.
And Christy?
Christy Solda here.
And Renee?
Renee Kier here.
And Deb Potay?
Deputy, it's right here.
Deb Potay here. All right, thank you all for joining. We're gonna move through this agenda fairly quickly. I want to, is Brooks
Looks
here?
like
Well, I
Greg
did
just
want to
joined us.
recognize him. Oh, Greg joined us, so he's here.
I am.
And
Sorry. I was doing my
yeah.
my medical insurance enrolling and I completely lost track of the time.
okay, so we open the
It was-
meeting. We do have,
And
a
it was
quorum.
painful, as it always is.
So I do want to recognize Brooke when she comes on for becoming one of our members. And I also want to thank Deb and Lynn and Mike and let's see, Bill, Deb Potee and Lynn, I said you, I think, for
Did.
participating in the meeting yesterday with the town officials. So just a quick update on the PowerPoint. We did have the meeting with the Board of Selectmen in Gill and the Board of Selectmen in Montague. We also had the FinCom, I believe, from Montague present. We had some school committee members. We had,
Not very many from the FinCom from Montague. I think there was one person there.
oh, I thought they had a quorum because they had 3 of them and they weren't sure.
No, that was Gil.
Oh, that was Gil. Thank you. So it was fairly well attended, and you know, I thought one of the things that I came away with was they did their homework based on questions they were asking and some of the comments. It was evident that many or most had or all had reviewed the presentation that was put together ahead of time. So we went through it again, of course, and then they had an opportunity to ask questions. So I'll just pause here for a minute since Lynn, thank you so much for organizing that. Did you work with Mike on that?
Somewhat, yes. Wendy and Greg too, and talked to Wendy midday today, and she said that she had about 50 screens up. So that was a very good turnout.
Yeah. How many can fit on a screen? Like 10?
Yeah.
She says on whatever screen she has, she can see 25 at a gallop.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or 24.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great.
Sorry,
So I don't know.
There were 50 people. It didn't look like there were that many participants in the participant group, but there were.
It depends.
Yeah,
Like I
participants
think.
that got up into the low 30s, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Greg was explaining to me because I asked, he said there can be others that are watching. And if they have a comment, they come to the front of the screen, but otherwise they're sort of in the background. So
Well,
someone
they're on
has the-
different pages. It's multiple
Yeah.
pages in Zoom. You can
Yeah, but
have,
the
you know,
participant count is the participant count, right?
yeah, exactly. I didn't think it was
I was
50. I
watching
thought it
that
was,
and it got
yeah.
up to the low 30s, 32,
Yeah.
maybe 33,
All right. Well, given the first.
which is still
you know,
good.
Yeah. So I'm just going to pause for a minute and give people a comment to, what they thought. Bill, do you mind if I start with you? Want to just hit people that were actually can share their thoughts regarding the meeting.
No, I thought it went off well. I think it was well received by the boards. And I don't know, the only thing I recommend is that it is not really true that there's enough time on each panel to read it, as well as it went much more with the dialogue rather than allowing people time. So that's something to be worked on, is how to pause each slide for a longer period of time. I'm not a speed reader, and most people aren't.
Yeah,
I don't think it's supposed
I
to be
can
that way.
comment. Let me comment to that,
Yeah.
which is, the whole reason of making the video was to put it on YouTube so that people can view it.
Right.
So they can pause it whenever they want. It wasn't really designed for presentation live like that. So I'm thinking I might, Mike and I went back and forth a couple of times on embedding the narrative into the slides for an in-person interview, which also I can do. Take the slides and then basically insert an audio file into each slide so that whoever's doing the presentation, you can sit on the slides as long as you want. I think, and I talked with Ray Purrington, our town administrator, today to get his feedback on what he thought. He thought the meeting was very good. It went very well. And he said the video is actually very good. That, we didn't have enough time if someone had not seen it. And we discussed and said, the chances are pretty much everyone at that meeting had already watched it, because the video went out with the agenda ahead of time so that the select boards and the FinCom members and whoever else was going to attend could watch it ahead of time. And I noticed I was kind of curious about that, when they put the video on, I was looking at the other, looking at people, and they weren't really watching it. So I could tell that they had already watched it and had spent the time with it. But you have to put it out there anyways, just in case it's a public meeting that is being recorded. And two, maybe, there may have been one person that hadn't seen it yet. So
I also talked with Ray today, and he also mentioned that in his opinion, he thought that community forums should be attempt to do them not virtually, to do them in person. I think that's an important thing to have not mentioned.
I agree.
Thank you. And that's our intention. So thank you for that. And I talked to Greg after the meeting. I called him and we talked a little bit about it. And I think that, and we can, Jane, we can give you feedback. I think if we do an in-person meeting in Pioneer, the person controlling it can actually, have the voice tell it, pause it because it's streaming along, and then just give people an opportunity to make sure they have a chance to read it, and then say, okay, everyone all set on that one, and then move on. So I think there's a way. We've learned some things from that. So thank you for that. Mike, did you have any comments?
Well, just I think it went well. And I agree with what other people have said. No need to repeat it. It struck me that there were a number of people there, and I think the questions were good, but they kind of scratched the surface. I mean, it was obviously the Chair Rich Kuklowitz wanted to move on to the rest of their meeting for obvious reasons. But it seemed like people got a chance to kind of start asking questions, and all of a sudden time was up.
Yeah.
And that there's probably not a whole lot that can be done about that, except I came away thinking, well, this was a good beginning, but You know, I hope that a number of people have a lot more questions because there wasn't time for all that many questions to be asked.
Yeah,
And to Bill's point, we can loop back. We can loop back and talk to select board in person maybe again and kind of work our way through. I know I plan to go to Irving and do a presentation with their school committee, and they can invite whomever, you know, they would like to. I'm sorry, Greg, you were saying something? Yes or no?
Yeah. I was just, are you done? Because I don't want to interrupt you. Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I thought there were a couple of really good questions. I think Matt had a very good question. I had to, clarify what he meant because I didn't quite hear what he said, but, he brought up that the high school at Turner's Falls was, about a little, maybe 15% less than what, if we combine the districts to, let's say, 340 or somewhere in there. That in 2015, that Turner's had a high school of about a little over 300, it sounded like. And so, would it be offering, what would be the difference in terms of the offerings? And how would it be different this time? And I thought that was a very good question. The one thing that I don't think he had thought of, though, which I tried to point out, was that your feeder schools now would be all the elementary schools in all 6 towns and not just the ones in your respective districts, which I think is a big difference. So that you wouldn't necessarily see the same kind of declines. Maybe you would, but I doubt it, because you're pulling from that many more elementary schools. But then the other thing was that just because they're not offering, let's say, I tried to make this point later, was that we may be offering, for instance, a band now that we were still offering a band in 2015. That may not change, but the amount of students in your band is going to change dramatically. So, and I tried to make that point. So you don't necessarily look at it in terms of how much more can be offered, but you have to look at it also in terms of that critical mass of students that would be in the class to make it, in a sense, robust. I mean, they may have a band of only 6. They may have a band of 40 back then. It's still the same class. So it's not like, okay, you're not offering more, but you don't have the same amount of students anymore. So it's a very different class now. So but I think it was, it was a good question to ask.
Yeah, and Bill, you've been on the committee, I'm not sure how long, but I was going to raise the issue, but I decided not to, that Mike Sullivan obviously became concerned with programs and services, seeing them being diminished because of declining enrollment, which was the impetus for, start taking a look at, maybe we should be taking a look at a grant to, explore this further. I hesitated and then decided not to, because like any superintendent that comes and goes, some people love them and some people don't. And I think, looking forward and pursuing what we're doing, makes the most sense.
Can I just follow up with what Greg
I'm going to go
said?
to Deb. I'm going to do it with Deb. Yeah, Deb, you were next anyways, and I'm going to finish with Lynn. Go ahead, Deb.
I just wanted to follow up with what Greg said about just not even just specifically the band, although the band is what I'll use as an example. And it didn't occur to me till just now, but if you have, depending on the culture of the schools too, right? If they decide, for example, oh, we're going to make sure that music early education is going to happen in all the elementary schools in this district, right? Then the influx of more band students will happen at the higher levels. So it just depends on the culture that happens. And if you have a larger, wider culture of elementary schools, you're going to potentially have more athletes, more band participants, more whatever, because you're going to be, I don't like the word groom, but you are going to be grooming them to participate in these kinds of activities if that is where the energy goes. So I'm aligning with what Greg is saying. And also there's this opportunity So, and I thought it went well. I was horrified that the my voice, and then it would just flip to the next screen. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no time.
Mm.
It was just like a runaway train. So I hope it's true that people had seen it prior, because it felt very rushed.
Well, and that's the thing, is that if I should have probably insisted in letting me play the video, because I would have just paused it. I would have paused the
Right, you're right.
video
You
at
should have
each
paused it
and
at the graphs, for
allow
sure.
them, I didn't say that to Wendy. I didn't really think about it. But next time.
Right. No, and
Yeah.
it was fine, but I thought
Yep.
I was a little concerned about the Montague reporter gentleman. And I was
Jeff.
glad that we kept him sort of in check about what he was really focused on. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
'Cause he
Well,
seemed like
Mike and I could go on for probably quite a while about.
okay, well, you don't have to, but I was glad that everyone was there, sort of steering him in a different direction.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we tamped down the whole elementary school thing.
Yeah.
I still, Al and I questioned afterwards that, we'll probably still see something in the newspaper about it.
Right, it was
Unfortunately, it's
unfortunate
just
because-
scare everybody that somehow
Yeah.
their elementary school is going to get closed. I'm like, no, I'm like, that has never been our charge.
Right.
And we're not going to, if we decide to go with a regional district, we're certainly not going to put elementary schools on the chopping block. I mean, that was never the goal. So
So
Okay, I'm gonna go to Bill. Oops. Bill, Mike, and then I'll have Lynn wrap it up. Bill?
Thanks. I just wanted to mention the other last night, it was always sports. And so I'm glad to hear Greg and Deb focus more on band today. I think we should consistently mention more than sports, if nothing else, just extra collegiate opportunities. And then secondly, on the question about the elementary schools, I think at some point you have to, and the reason that I wanted to make a point that after you two had discussed it at length, I think at some point you need to be really quite brief and direct and just answer the question and not try to bring in your whole philosophy that supports that. So that's why I said the elementaries had not been a focus of discussion. And I also mentioned that it was a highly political thing. And others did too. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Mike?
Yeah, I just want to, this is an interesting discussion, but it seems to me that we're kind of getting into answering some of the questions that came up last night. And my understanding is that we're going to collect all those questions and come up with as complete answers as we can at some point. So I just don't, like I say, this is all interesting, but I hope it doesn't replace the process of essentially coming up with a more complete set of answers to all of the questions that have been already asked and were asked last night. Because I think that's important. And I have some
Okay.
thoughts about the questions that we've been talking about, but I'm not sure we've got other things on our agenda for now. And I'm hoping that in the future, there'll be a chance to talk about all this in more detail.
Okay, so that is another agenda item, not on this agenda. So let me just be clear what the purpose of what we're doing. Basically, we're sharing reactions and making suggestions about how things could be improved as we go forward on this and what we learned. And so, this is really important feedback and important discussion to share what we've learned and the observations that we made so we can improve our presentation and be responsive. So that's the purpose of being on the agenda and sharing. And I am really pleased with the comments that are coming out and the feedback, because I think we can use this not only for the next actual presentation, but as we do in-person meetings and continue to roll this out. Mike, your hand's still up. Do you want to take it
Oh,
down so I
sorry.
know when it? And then, okay, Deb, and then I'm going to, Lynn, you'll get the final words to wrap it up. Deb, Loomer.
I wasn't at any of the meetings, but as I watched the video, my only thought was the last statement that says, and if one town votes against it, then it can't happen. It just kind of, for me, after seeing the presentation, which I thought was really good, it just ended on this negative thought. And so it was kind of like a downer, like, oh, this is interesting, this is good, and then bam, a downer. So I don't know if there's anything you can do about that. I don't know how other people felt, but for me, that was just yeah, it was a letdown at the end, and I thought the presentation was really good. Just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Thank
I
you.
agree.
And Len, you have the last for all your work in organizing this. So thank you. Go ahead.
Well, just a couple things. One is I did especially call both of those newspaper reporters to make sure that they were going to be there. And even though we know they're usually going to be there, I think it emphasized to them that this was important and they pay attention. In comment regarding the rush, I think it was really good that it was hooked into the select board meeting, because I think that arranged for a bigger group. And having it run seamlessly that way, I think was a good thing. However, because they allocated that whole hour in front of when they usually meet, it made so that it really had to fit in that hour, and it did. And what I kind of sensed was, as that ran along, the voiceover was carrying it. It kept it moving in a way that it had to. And it also, I think, would be, my feeling was, is it was an impetus, okay, go to the YouTube on our site and really take a look at those slides. So I think it's a way that, we can just build on that.
So Lynn, just a couple quick questions to help us as we plan forward. How did you invite? Who did you invite? You invited the select board by email or talking to them? How did you go about inviting the various stakeholders?
I went through Wendy. She's
Okay.
amazing. And she made, I said, here's what I need. She made it happen.
All right. So she invited the select board, the school committee, the
Yep.
FinComs?
Yep.
Okay. And then you reached out to the reporter?
Both of them, the recorder and the reporter.
Okay.
And I did get
All
a
right,
call.
and did we have any other stakeholders there? How did Brian, did Brian just take this upon himself, or was there a reach out to administration?
Yes, that was again through Wendy. Yep.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
he's
All right,
he's
good.
also
All right,
he's
thank you
also
so much.
notified.
Yeah.
Brian's notified on all our
Yeah.
agendas and everything else.
Okay, great.
Yeah, one thing that did
Super.
one last piece of feedback, which was it was also suggested by Ray, actually, was saying that he would like to see, and I agreed, that we have, our own meeting in Gill to get our own residents involved. And one of the ways to do that would be to have the meeting at our elementary school,
Mhm.
so that we could invite, especially because the families that are going to be affected by this, if it moves forward, would be the ones that have elementary school kids. Because we're looking at
Right.
that possibly that far out from when if and when it happens.
So as I think, just to remind people, when we get into December, January, February particularly, remember, part of this is we are going to be organizing with the PTOs, PTAs, going to each of the elementary schools, going to the stakeholders, to the staff and so forth. So this will be all part of the rollout and then the public forums for the community. So we're going to take the next couple of months to really reach out, get feedback, and then make a recommendation. If the recommendation is moving forward so we can see what that looks like, then we'll use money that was purposed for a consultant to work with all the various stakeholders to put together a regional agreement. So we have a lot of rollout to do, and we can follow that up in a little bit when we talk about, the components of the grant. So with that said, let me turn over to Jane, who is muted right now, who has been working with the pioneer towns to see if something can happen. I know she was working on November 28th and seeing if there could be possibly a in-person meeting in Berniston. So Jane, I'll put it over to you, see where we are.
I did schedule the senior center for the 28th at 6:30. I sent invitations to each town administrator, whatever the proper title is in each town, asking them to notify their select board members and their FinCom members. I sent a note to the chairman of the school committee, apologizing for bothering a very busy person, but asking her to please notify and invite the school committee members and the I don't know if I said administration or if I said superintendent, but anyway. And I justified my request by saying tomorrow is election day and I don't know who your members are going to be come the 28th of November. We had write-in votes in every single town and I still don't know who our school committee people are.
Jane, we won't know for another week or two because the old members who weren't on the ballot have been asked to come back to the school committee meeting this week because we don't know who our new members are yet. And we won't for another week or two because of overseas ballots, et cetera, et cetera. That's what the town clerks are saying.
I'm sure that's true.
Interesting.
The other interesting thing, and I did not realize this, I mean, it's perfectly logical, but our town clerk told me that every ballot that has any write-in, wherever it is, gets kicked out, and that ballot has to be handled manually.
Yeah.
So here in this 4-town region, for 4 towns, they all got presented with ballots that had write-in for every, in some cases, every single vacancy on the school committee. So their machines weren't counting much. And it counted mine because I couldn't find out who was doing write-ins. So I didn't have a write-in on my ballot. And I felt bad about that. The publicity around that was not great, but that's another subject. So I asked that people RSVP. I've set this up as an in-person only meeting. And I thought that I might hear back from somebody saying, can't we do remote also? But I haven't heard that. I have heard back from the Bernardson people. I've heard back from Northfield Finance Committee. Not all the members, but some of them. I had an email from the town, from David Young for, responding for the town, but not telling me if anyone was going to come. So I need to do some follow-up there. And I'm not quite sure how to do that without sounding like I'm chastising people for not responding. But I also need to provide a posting since we the organization here for the 4 towns is handled by Lois Stearns and myself. So before I did anything, I had a long talk with Lois, and we decided to follow the procedure that we had been having when we were holding regular meetings, which was Bernardston Senior Center, Monday nights, all select board members and all finance committee members. And so that's the route that I took with that. And that's why I took that route. Then I followed it up with the invitation to the school committee, and thanks, Alan, for that suggestion, because I really was laboring about how to handle that. I would love it if Greg would handle the presentation that night, at least as far as the video goes. And I have to find out how that's going to work at the senior center. They have a big screen TV, but how we can sign on there, I haven't been able to meet with the director to find that out. And then we should have a moderator. And I have not yet succeeded in meeting with BNC TV, and it's partly my fault. I'm not in control of my own schedule anymore, which is getting to be a lame excuse, but I'll maybe send him an email and see if I can work it that way. I know that meeting in the senior center, it will not be a live presentation. You'll have to do a recording and then put it on the site. Unless something has changed at the senior center. Pre-COVID, when we were meeting regularly, he would be there and he would record the meeting and then he would put it out on the site, but it could never be live. Thanks, Lynn, for mentioning the newspaper, because that completely went over my head. I never thought to invite them, but I will do that.
So one little comment was, one of the things that turned out in our situation to be lucky is by putting it on the select board agenda, it also gets posted on the town website. And there are a lot of people that, look at that, look at those agendas. And I didn't recognize a lot of names that I was seeing going across that board. So that may have been helpful too.
Right. I think
Jane.
your group had the advantage of this being a regular thing and being a select board meeting where we're, I don't want to say independent, but we are separate. However, we have to post in all 4 towns. So the meeting will be posted, but I guess I could ask the town administrators to get it on their select board agendas as an announcement.
Yes. Yes.
Jane, when the pioneer towns got together before, did the Board of Selectmen, when they prepared their agenda, announce that they would be having a meeting in Bernardston? And so they opened the meeting with a roll call vote for the respective towns and then, move from there. How did that work before?
I can't answer to what anybody did with their agendas, but I do know that we, every board, whether it be select board or finance board, opened their meeting and closed it.
Okay. And
And
what do you think
we
about?
weren't positive that we had to do that, but we felt that we were, take the safest route.
All right. And when you did that, how many people attended before, and what's the accommodation if it becomes like wildfire and the boards come, finance committee comes, and some school committee? How does the senior center set
That'll
up for
fit. I haven't
accommodating?
checked the number. The number that I have on the top of my head is 150. The
Oh, that's
difference,
plenty.
The difference between this meeting and the regular meetings that we held. When we were meeting on a regular basis, we would set the room up with tables in a big square. And everybody would sit around the outside of the table, so everyone could primarily see everyone else. Not necessarily if it was a third person down on your right, you might not be so lucky. But for this the 28th, we will not do that because that table arrangement accommodated the select boards and the finance committees. Shoulder to shoulder.
Mhm.
There was no spare room between any two chairs. And when people from the school committee came, they sat off to the side. I didn't want that to happen with this group. So we will set it up either auditorium style, or depending on the numbers we have, we may be able to do a horseshoe so we can all see the screen and then pull into a circle after the presentation. We're not going to have a time limit unless we decide that we should set one so it doesn't go on forever. But that would be kind of up to whoever volunteers to moderate this.
Well, I
I'm not
think Greg and I are planning to attend that meeting, and I think Greg has already said that he would, help to, operate that so that we can be in control of pausing it and making sure people have enough time to
Right.
read it. It sounds
But I
like things
appreciate
are,
the thing I'm concerned, somebody mentioned this about answering the question that's asked and not expounding on it. And I think that's extremely important. Just answer the question and don't add a lot of other information. Let the people bring up the questions. If we get too wordy, we're going to turn people off. And I don't want that to happen. I want to hear their input. I want to hear their questions. So, if I say, how many buses are you going to run? And you say, I think it's 21, but stop right there. Never mind the buts. If they have a follow-up question, let them ask it. And I'm picking on buses because it seems a nice, easy question to use for an example. What else? What am I missing? I did not
Jane,
send, and I realized tonight that I didn't include any of you in any of these emails. Which would have been
did you
nice.
give them a time frame, Jane, to respond so that, or maybe have
I
somebody
just-
follow up?
I
So
just said, no, I just said, please RSVP. It will be helpful in setting up the site or something like that. Be helpful
do
to
you
know
want me
how
to
many
try to
we
reach
have.
out to Tyler and talk to him about if he could record it? It sounds like you have a number of things going in your personal life. Maybe we could take a few things off your plate.
That'd be great if you could talk to him.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
also put him in touch with me, Jane, if you would like.
Oh, do that. Let's do that. Because you'll be coordinating that, Greg. That'd be good.
Yeah, it's fine.
So you'll ask Tyler to get in touch with Greg? Alan?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I did finally send an email to Christy and Renee when I remembered that they might want to participate in this, if I could. So I'd like to get together, the three of us, sometime and figure out exactly what we're doing. Okay,
Sounds great. All right,
Jane,
well,
would
thanks
you
for the good
consider
work
having a
you're
hybrid
doing there.
meeting?
pardon me, Mike?
Would you consider having a hybrid meeting?
Yes, and Lois and I decided that an in-person meeting would be preferable.
That'll make it hard for me to be there. I'd be willing to come to a hybrid meeting. I don't know if I can come to an in-person meeting.
Yeah, I don't know how it can handle a hybrid meeting from the senior center. Greg? You got an answer for that?
I mean, it's possible. It's, it would be having a designated computer with a video. I mean, that's really all you need. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's just that if we offer hybrid, the problem with it is you really, you kind of have to make it available to everyone, and then you do kind of need a proper setup. So, I mean, if it was just Mike, sort of calling in, that's one thing. But to offer a hybrid setup for a public meeting is another. So tough.
What's the connection like, Jane, there in terms of the speed of the internet service?
I don't know any of those answers.
Okay. So Greg, I will reach out, find Tyler and have him give you a call. And then you can handle the logistics and see how that can work.
Okay.
He needs to know, usually well in advance. And doesn't he record the select board meetings in Berniston? So if this is part of a select board meeting.
This is not part of a select board meeting.
Oh, they're not going to do that as a select board.
This
meeting
is a 4-town select board finance committee meeting.
Well, but if there's a quorums of those boards, they need to post their own.
Right,
meeting,
I don't know how we post the 4-town meeting. I don't know if each committee beyond that posts individually or not. I don't
I think
remember.
they're supposed to. They're supposed to.
Yeah,
If
okay.
a quorum of a committee is present,
Well, I have some real questions about that. If the COG offers a workshop and all of us go to the workshop, from each of our committees go to the workshop, we do not post that. We go and we attend the meeting that the COG has posted. And we do not call, if there's a quorum of our individual committees there, we don't call them to order.
That's because there's no deliberation. It's fine to do that. Same thing with select board regional meetings. You just
Well,
can't.
and there's no deliberation in this meeting that we're holding. It's strictly informational. There aren't going to be any decisions
Right.
made.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you're right.
So I don't know that it's necessary, but it's
All right. Well, thank you, Jane. So it's funny. November's just going by so fast. It's right around the corner.
I
So
can't believe it.
see what we can
Yeah.
do. Greg, do you want to jump in on talking about the efficiency and regionalization grant? And we'll handle that one next, moving along.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sorry. I have my screen off. I just, I'm having to eat my dinner a little bit here. So.
I'm going to do that after.
Yeah. Well, I'm starving. So my apologies.
No problem.
No, the ENR grant is in. It was a little hectic getting it in because Alan and I wrote the narratives over the weekend. We had it to Joanne by Sunday, but she was on vacation and wasn't returning till Thursday morning. And so we ran into a problem there because she got held up with the hurricane down in Florida.
Tropical storm, yeah.
Yeah, tropical storm, which canceled the flights, and so she was in the airport, not really able to submit the application. So I reached out to DOR right away to ask if they'd received it, and then also to see if we could have an extension if not. And so then there was a bunch of emailing flying around from Joanne, who had gotten on, and she was asking for the same thing. And so anyway, we got it done. He sent me a template so that I could put it into the right format and then just populate it with the narratives and data that we had, and they accepted it. And then this morning I received a letter of support from
Reps Paul Mark, Whips, and Natalie Blais, and Senator Comerford all signed on to a letter of support for our grant, and which they received today.
Oh, lovely.
So that's it in a nutshell. But Alan, if you want to go over, because I've got a talking behind me, so if you want to go over what the grant covered, if you want to give them that.
Yeah,
detail.
and we can send this out. We have it in a form. I don't know if we have it in a form. I've got our cut and paste, some of that stuff, so I can do the highlights. So basically, what we were doing is looking at the Mars report and the various things that have to happen. And I'm, from my perspective, I think we should be on the home stretch in terms of, you can study something for so long, and then you've got to decide, are you going to the towns, and if you are, to do all the preparation. So this, and then knowing that we weren't under the restraints that we've been before, like you get the grant in March and they tell you have till December, and then you're spending time getting consultants. So we have 18 months. So I was really pleased to hear that, because that gives us a lot of time to be able to get out to the various communities and stakeholders and present things. And then I don't know when we'll receive word, but we can start that process, and then we'll be able to hire consultants to to continue the work. So here are some of the things that I'm just going to go over, like the timeline, and not get into the nitty gritty of each one, but we'll send this to you, and then you can see all the narrative behind these areas. So let's see. So in the November to May, so that's the overarching public meetings, presentations of findings, community outreach. December, January, hiring consultants through RFPs. February, March, generate surveys in response to fall, winter public meetings. So based on the information we're getting, we should be able to really populate a really beneficial survey, because the last one, a lot of the feedback we got was, well, we listened to a few teachers, or we listened to our son, or we actually came to the forum to figure out how to do the survey because they didn't have enough information. The thought here is, if we're successful in reaching out, answering questions, getting people information, then we should get a fairly good response in terms of those that fill out the survey in terms of feedback. So that was a timeline of February, March. Also, 6-town regional planning board consultants began the process to produce a new regional agreement, figuring in March, if we have enough input now and we're going down that road, and we feel we're going to be recommending at least to put that together, to bring it to the towns, that process will be a very long process to be doing. Then there'd be a number of forums that would take us from March until January of 24, in terms of committees working with consultants, meeting bi-weekly, reviewing the regional agreements of the past, developing community relation plans, continuing to hold public hearings, review suggestions, mutually acceptable language to a regional agreement, ensure all parts of the regional agreement are in compliance with the state and laws and DESI regulations. That would entail having a DESI and local legal review. So council and preliminary approval from DESI. We definitely would need, put money in there for legal review. And then the planning board sends a draft regional agreement to both regional school committees. Both regional school committees review the new regional agreement, is sent to the boards of selectmen of all potential member towns, public relations, meetings and outreach, another consultant. And we want to probably hire, a firm or a group that actually has that professional experience of doing that piece of the public relations. In talking to Jake, I don't remember his last name, Greg, they had, I believe, hired or was it Blair, hired a public relations that they, I believe, felt that that was money well spent to get the word out and to communicate in a number of forums. And then in June of 2024, if we've gone down this road, the residents would vote at their respective town meetings to approve or not approve. So within that, there were money amounts that we put in. We projected number of hours, how long it would take. We had a conversation after we did this with Jake from the Berkshire Group to see if this made sense in terms of the amounts of money that we put in. I did reach out to Steve Hemmen to get his thoughts. He gave me amounts. I pared each one of those down significantly if I didn't agree with them. So I think it was 185,000 or something like that, 187,000
No,
that
180.
it totaled. 180.
Yep.
That to do a number of things. So the number of consultants along the way, there's a lot of heavy lifting. Obviously, we're involved in meeting with the consultants and providing direction and so forth. So we'll get this to you. You can see the components of it. And this was not an easy process, but, and we put a lot of research before we started writing this, going back to what Mike Sullivan had put out initially and then looking at the various reports about what things needed to be done, talking to the Berkshire Group about things that they thought were important. And then finally, we spent all day Saturday and Sunday writing and editing and trying to make sure we were addressing all aspects of, I think there were 7 questions, but all the components that the efficiency and regionalization grant required. One of the problems we had was we thought we would just get in and log on and get into the portal and we would be able to get the application. And we were immediately found that we didn't have access to the portal, that there was a password, that information had been sent somewhere else. So we had to backtrack to get that information. So this was a lot convoluted, a lot of convolution to it to get it done. But we got it in and we'll see where we are next. Greg, you want to add?
Yes, I'm gonna send out the grant right now, so I'll just email it to everybody. I'll make it simple. And then I will archive it in our STRBB drive folder. Okay, so.
Yep. Now, I'm not sure what happens.
Coming shortly.
Yeah, if we don't get the grant, that's another conversation. Because, the ball did get dropped between the House thinking the Senate was doing, the Senate thinking the House was doing it. I don't know what department or where Desi was in on this, but we were really pleased to see them pointing us in the direction of this grant, which is ironically the one that started this whole thing that Mike had applied to begin the process. So I think I'm not sure in terms of the next steps, we do have to start coordinating for the different constituent groups in the elementary schools. I don't know if it makes sense to wait for Pioneer. My impression was we were planning on having the boards of selectmen, sort of be the first ones to be able to hear all of this. And then we would begin rolling it out to the various constituents. So if I understood that correctly, that makes a lot of sense to me, to start with the leaders in the community and then reach out to the other stakeholders. Does that make sense to folks? Okay, and then we can coordinate that after
Al,
in
Al?
terms of, yep,
Can we just, I mean, that makes sense to me. Can we clarify who we see the other constituents to be? I'm hearing selectmen. And then I'm hearing parents of elementary school children. Who else?
okay, I'll clarify. So maybe I wasn't very effective in my communication earlier. I said, this was the first exposure to the boards of selectmen. We need to, as we roll this out, we need to go back to the boards of selectmen, go back to the FinCom. We shouldn't be done with them because we want to get more feedback. And as you pointed out, there was limited time. So part of the rollback was they've had that first overview, would be reaching back out to the, the town officials. It might be a little more direct in terms of meeting with the boards of selectmen individually and having a conversation and get feedback. There'd be the teachers, there'd be the parents or the PTOs and having it in the elementary schools. There would be sort of a repeat of what we did with when Mary was meeting, with the communities and trying to have them come into the high school, like Pioneer. The community was invited, and so if we involve early on a professional, how did I call it, a communication, public relations to help get the masses to these meetings. We heard that, there was success there. So we'll, get a RFP out, try to secure someone who has a good record of that and move out to as many stakeholders as we can, teachers, administrators, parents, community in general, town officials.
Well, and our timing on this?
Perhaps students, school committee.
Our timing on this will be largely January and February.
January, February, March.
Okay, because you had said, I thought I heard you say that you thought by March we might be able to make a decision, but we might. Now I'm hearing that we'll still be, I'm just trying to kind of get a sense of what's coming, because you're mentioning a lot of groups, especially when you consider that, some of those groups are times 6 for all the towns. I didn't hear school committees. Are they on the list?
I
He
did say
mentioned
school
them.
committees.
He mentioned
Okay.
them.
Okay, so I'm just trying, and I'm thinking, December, a lot of people tend to be busy with things. Were we thinking that much would happen in December, or is this something that after the meeting change setting up, pretty much there'll be a lull and then start up again kind of January timeframe?
Well, here's what I envision. It may not roll out this way, but I think we could develop a calendar with the various stakeholders, with talking to the principals and the PTOs and so forth, and developing a calendar that we'd be able to implement in January, early February. So we can do the back work in planning ahead. And then, we'd have that all laid out of who we're going to be meeting with and why, and that's going to take some time. A lot of logistics behind that.
Oh,
So I
agree.
anticipate that's going to take a lot of December.
Okay. Okay, no, I just trying to get a sense of what, what's coming up in the next few weeks,
Yeah.
basically.
Well, I'd like to get a little feedback about that because I'm just sharing, my thoughts about, realistically, having meetings in December to me, and it's a very busy time. That may not work very well, but people can have conversations as they're planning, their events to get on their calendar, PTOs and staff meetings and so forth. How do people feel about that? Does that make sense?
Well, I am wondering that on the 28th, if some of the select boards anyone or all four of the select boards would ask to have a presentation done in their town.
Mhm.
um,
Okay.
at their select board meeting, because I think all four towns do broadcast their meetings, so they might feel that it was a good idea and would make information available to the residents and voters of their town. And I would like to be able to say, yes, we'll do that. Give us your dates. And I think that if we're going to do these presentations and offer it to all these groups, we should sit down and put a calendar together of when we are available to do this. And I'm saying we, because more than one of us is going to have to go to each of these meetings. And I think I'm correct in saying we all have lives outside of this committee. So, you know, I'm available X number of Mondays. I'm never available on Monday, but maybe Tuesday or whatever it is. We need to have that master plan of who's available, what nights to go where. And that may be a good thing for our next meeting to do.
Okay. So we would start with a plan of availability for the planning board members.
Right.
I'm wondering, Jane, if that was sent, if people, like if you coordinated, okay, in Bernards, well, your members in Bernardston, when are you available? And then you put in, these are the days or dates or however that we're not. Particularly, I like the idea about boards of selectmen because that can be where the community forums are. That, you know, it's a presentation at a board of selectmen meeting, but maybe it's a dedicated agenda they're willing to do. And the public is invited to that.
Well, I
That's
think
the-
if a board of selectmen brought that up on the 28th and I responded, that would be part of my question. Do you want this as a dedicated select board meeting, special select board meeting dedicated to this purpose? Or
If that
are you
makes sense
looking
to
to
them.
include it in your regular agenda? And if they say I'm looking to include it in our regular agenda, I would be ready to tell them what the downfalls are of that.
Yeah, I
Well, do
would
you think if we did that and you said, well, can you earmark at least an hour for that?
If you want a response from the public, I think you have to earmark more than an hour. If you're gonna
Yeah,
do this
okay.
presentation, and you
Yeah.
said you had 30 people signed on, how many of those 30 people made comments after the presentation was done?
Right. So we'd
Yeah,
be
not-
looking for a couple hours, right?
Yeah,
Jane?
Yeah.
Couple
yeah,
hours.
a special select board meeting. They, you know, that,
That's what I would think.
yeah.
Or-
Not
or
their
else
regularly
you-
scheduled one.
Right. Or you schedule your, the other business that you have to do at a special meeting prior to your normal meeting and get your regular business out of the way at 4 o'clock instead of at 6.
Yeah. All right, so let's try to shore that up at our next meeting, which I'm gonna just jump past any other business for a minute and go down to when I just put some dates in as a possibility, but and I guess I did that in my cover letter. I think I threw out there December 6th or 7th or 13th or 14th. What is that too early? Does that make sense?
I would
Can
go
you
with,
make
I would
Tuesday?
go, I would vote for December 6th.
Okay, that's a Tuesday. How
Yeah,
we looking? Do we think people could make that?
Okay.
To look, okay, generally, okay, December 6th at 6:30. Thank you. All right, we'll plan on that then. And
Is-
should
Bill, is that a
we
school committee?
look at the
meeting?
13th as well? Should we look at 2 dates if we need to have a follow-up?
Mike's asking if that's somebody's board meeting on the 6th. And if,
That's a
He
Tuesday.
was asking me.
oh, okay.
Oh,
I'm not sure right this second. I think it may be a conflict for me, but that shouldn't necessarily stop your meeting.
Well, it'd be a conflict for Brooke too,
Oh, that's true.
who isn't
Yep.
here.
Right.
Nice to see her come to one of our meetings.
how about we look at the 6th and the 13th? That would definitely catch Brooke and you, Bill.
Uh-huh.
Because I don't think we're gonna finish this up if I don't want to spend a 3-hour meeting. We can start to unpack things on the 6th and finish on the 13th.
Sure.
Do people put that in tentatively? Those are 2 Tuesdays. And Karen, can I ask you a question? It has to do with Pioneer. Oh, you're officially off, but I guess you're not. So I guess I'll talk to you later. Because I didn't think you could be called back. So they must have checked with the Attorney General or something. I
they
thought once
did.
that date was over. Okay.
They
And they said,
checked.
yeah, they could call him. Okay,
Mhm.
great. All right, so I'll put down the 6th and the 13th at 6:30 for the Sixtown Regional Planning Board. Moving back a minute, on any other business that people wanted to bring up that we didn't anticipate.
I just, this came up for me and I tried to join that meeting last night using the information Greg sent out a few days ahead with a link to the homepage, which had a link to, had the Zoom link, and it had a meeting ID, but it asked for a passcode.
Mhm.
And that information wasn't there, or if it was given in the past, I don't have it.
I think the passcode was a part of the, was on the webpage, I believe.
Yeah, no,
No.
I know exactly what you said, Karen, because I clicked on the link and when I got in, it asked for passcode. So I
Right.
thought, where was that? So I
wasn't.
back up. And
Yeah,
I
I know.
saw under the link, it said passcode and then it had a phone number too. So there were 2
Yeah.
other pieces of information. So I wrote it
Yep.
down and then I went back in.
The password
Put the
was underneath the link on the website. It was just below it.
I
So I gave
found
them-
it, but I still couldn't get on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had trouble too, but I have a feeling that she hadn't actually opened up the meeting yet. So we
Okay,
were
that might have
clicking,
been.
and then the minute she opened up the meeting, all of a sudden I was in, because it said I couldn't get in either, and I just waited, and eventually I just got let in.
Well,
My patience.
I tried for half an hour and
Oh, no, that's not
Oh
good.
my, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Jane, but I mean, Karen, but I do want to recognize and thank you for the effort of trying to get in, because I'm sure you were really interested in hearing and watching that, because you've been really committed to this process and learning as much as you can. So
Yeah,
thank
it's
you for
weird.
trying.
well, thank you, especially I want to learn about what people in the other towns feel.
Yeah,
I think that's
Yeah.
important.
Mhm. But
Yeah.
if it was recorded, I guess I can watch it, right?
It was certainly
Yes.
recorded. It's on the
Oh, good.
MCTV. If you go to the MCTV website,
The what TV?
Okay. Montague,
MCTV.
MCTV, okay.
the one we use, Karen, Tyler.
No, that's BNCTV.
That's
that
Oh,
BNC.
you're right. You're right. Mike, what was that again? MC?
M Montague Community
Montague
Television.
Community TV.
Channel
Mhm.
17,
Thank
isn't
you.
it?
Karen, if you have trouble, you
Thank
can
you.
email me and I'll give you a link.
Thank you.
No, great. Could you, Mike, send a link to the board so that
Sure.
others, those that weren't able to participate, and so if we could send the link out to the whole board, they would have a chance to review it, and that will be very
Okay.
helpful. I'll put in the cover, try to, look at it before our next meeting, because
That
as
would
we're
be
planning,
great, because I had a conflict, so I didn't even try.
Mm.
yeah, let's do that, because
Yeah.
that will enrich our conversation
Yeah.
when we do meet, because we'll have that background information. That'd be great. Thanks, Mike.
And-
Just, yeah,
I would like to thank Deb and suggest she might have a career in voiceover. It was was really, really well done. Nice.
Thank you very much. That's very sweet. I'm sorry it was a downer, Deb, at the end, Deb Loomer. And I said it in a cheerful way, I thought too. But I know why you're saying that. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We won't
Pat,
show
you
that
have-
last
Okay.
slide on the 28th.
Well, we could show the last slide and say something like, the towns will decide, and this will be, we're
Mhm.
looking forward to hearing what people feel about it, and kind of
Right.
just change that a little bit. That's all. Pat, I think you wanted to say something.
I did. I think to just review what happened last night before the meeting in Berniston on the 28th would probably be a good thing. We could get
Okay.
an idea of what feedback was, if there was any or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll make sure that's an agenda item for the
Okay.
6th. Yeah, good point. All right, well, Andy, for the good of the order, is there anyone want to make a motion? I appreciate everyone's participation.
I-
7:46. Yeah.
I don't think I understood that last exchange. I thought
Yeah.
you were saying we should review what happened.
I
Last
did, and
night.
I don't think Alan understood either. What happened last night in Montague or Turner's or whatever. And I think that should be reviewed by us before we hear what's happening in, the Berniston meeting. Just because I think it would be good to hear if there was any, I wasn't there. I tried to get on and I couldn't get on either, but if there was any back and forth, it would be nice to hear what that back and forth was so that we could sort of anticipate.
So you're suggesting that people who weren't there
Yes.
should go back and look at the video?
Right.
Okay.
And then put that back on the agenda again. Is that right, Pat?
I
For more-
don't know that it needs to be on the agenda, does it?
No.
The
No,
agenda
I-
you're talking about would be after the fact of.
That's
Yeah,
right.
the
for town
28th.
meeting.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm talking November 28th. Isn't that when our meeting? is?
Yeah. Yeah.
At the senior center. So and then our meeting would not be until the 6th of December.
Okay,
Mhm.
But
Pat,
All
you
right,
want to
well-
help with the planning?
yeah,
All right, we'll call you.
here you
I
go.
don't have another meeting happening yet.
Well, I appreciate all the feedback and your giving up one of your evenings to be a part of this process. Does anyone I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
That was Jane and Lynn.
yes.
Mm,
All right. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mike,
Mike Naughton, aye.
Jane,
Aye.
Karen,
Yes.
Deb Loomer,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Lynn,
Aye.
Bill,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Deb, Patay,
Yes.
Renee,
Yeah, yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So we are adjourning at 7:49. I'd like to try to have shorter meetings and productive. So thank
Yeah.
you so much. And we will see you on the 6th. Well, we'll see you if you attend the 28th.
Right.
And
All right.
happy Thanksgiving in the meantime.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Thank
Oh,
you.
yes. Thank you for that. All right,
Yeah.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.